Presentation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, as a reminder, all or a portion of the meeting may be live streamed, recorded, and posted on the district's YouTube channel for the purpose of public broadcast and according to board policy. The district disclaims any responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public. Any unauthorized recording or rebroadcasting of any video, audio, and/or still image of this meeting is strictly forbidden without the written permission of the board or superintendent. Susan's taking roll call. We have members in attendance, and we have Mr. Cardamone and Ms. Evans on Zoom. Are there anyone signed up for public comments?
There is not.
No public comments this evening. We will start with the student board report, and this is the time of year we get to welcome new student board members. So if you would please introduce yourself and maybe tell us why you think it's important to be here as a student board rep.
I'll stand up. My name is Bo Thomas. I am the class treasurer, and I think it's important to be here because I like to have like a voice in what goes on at the school, and I felt like last year I kind of missed out on this. Obviously, I wasn't a senior, so I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to be here with you guys tonight.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Okay. I'm Elizabeth. I go by Beth. I'm Beth Valleys. I'm our senior class president. I think it's important to be here. Like, I really agree with what Bo said about having a voice, but also being here for the people who don't have a say in this, to give them a voice too. So it's definitely a really cool opportunity. Happy to be here.
All right,
Thank you.
Bo and Beth, thank you. And then whoever wants to get started with your board report, go ahead.
I'll get started. So this past Friday we had the first ever introduction of the kindergartners, where all the kindergartners and all of the high school seniors went up to the football field. The seniors started at one side of the field and the kindergarten started at the other. And a song played and we walked slowly to the middle of the field. We introduced ourselves, and they gave us a red bracelet that said class of 26, and we gave them a white bracelet. And for me, it was important because my little cousin is in kindergarten, and it was just so surreal to realize how old I was and how I'm going to be graduating this year. And I feel like it's important to have that opportunity for the seniors, just to be able to be like, wow, it's like I'm finally a senior. And after that, we talked, we introduced ourselves, and then the song changed, and we departed and went back to our sides of the fields, and it went well, and it was very organized.
Yeah, it was good. Do you want to talk about club fair?
Yes. Yesterday we had the high school club fair, right?
Yes, yesterday was 9
Yes,
through
so
12.
9 through 12 club fair, and there was around 20 clubs there, and there was various different clubs, such as student council, all the way to ski club, swim club, just for a few examples. And we had it in the cafeteria, and we called it down by 2 grades, right? 11 and 12 came down, and then 9 and 10, and it was just I feel like it almost went better than when it was outside. It was more organized, and people actually got to talk about the clubs and really just introduce their clubs and try to get people to be involved in it. And then today we had the junior high clubs, which we weren't a part of because of the junior student council runs the student council table, and I'm sure it was the same.
All right, and then we were also kind of just looking ahead. So, I mean, I'm sure a lot of you know this, but it's our job as student council. We plan a lot of things throughout the year. So right now we're really heavy hitting on homecoming, because that's this month. Our homecoming game is September 26th, and then the actual dance is September 27th. So we've been planning that. We've got our decorations ordered. We're gonna have it at the school this year. I think it's 7 to 10 that Saturday night, and our theme this year is Enchanted Forest, so we're pretty excited about that. Our court got announced, so it's Maggie Gadis, Olivia Toven, Riley Miller, Chloe Silverstein, Sarah Gottwald, and Cameron Hall. So that was good. That's exciting. think that's kind of it for homecoming, but it's
And-
quickly approaching.
Yes,
Anything else for us?
that's it.
I think that's all.
Okay. I don't know if the principals warned you, but we may have questions for you occasionally. We also welcome you to bring student perspectives to the board that may be outside the events or anything else. If there's something that your student body feels it's important the school board should know about, you may want to run it past your principal first, but definitely bring it to us, and we'll be happy to listen. Right?
Thank you.
And then also, the format of this for you guys have been, we know you're really busy in the evenings sometimes. If you want to stay and learn from this experience and what we're talking about, you're welcome to stay. But if you need to go because of your busy schedules, we're okay with you doing that after your reports. Good?
Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Any questions for our student board reps?
Good
All
luck
right.
tomorrow night.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. Good. We'll move on. We don't have any presentations for this evening, correct? And then on Tuesday, we'll be asking for approval of the minutes from the July 29th and August 13th meeting. And then we have the athletic report from Mr. Gold, and we have to hire 3 individuals there. And then do we have someone else to add as well?
Yes, he would like to, we'll do a revised agenda and be adding another position for Tuesday night.
Okay, so keep an eye out for an update to the agenda. We'll be adding a letter. We have A, B, and C, and we'll be adding a D to the agenda. And then we have an informational item for home swim meets. Are you covering that? or-
Yeah, I'll cover that. Mr. Gold is with the junior high football game currently. This was just informational that we're going to be, our pool is up and running. Just tested the electronics and the starting blocks for accuracy with some live swimmers, so we're ready to begin a home season this year. We're scheduled through the conference that we were in last year, and the intention, at least for our first year, is to have 3 to 4 home meets that would be with those schools that we would be swimming against twice. So we will have a more formal proposal on what that will involve at our next meeting in terms of officials and timers and all that is involved. So
Do you know how many swim meets there will be?
3 to 4 is what we're, yes.
Any questions on athletics or swimming, the swim meets? Okay. Then the transportation report, we had, on Tuesday, we'll be asking for approval for new vans and then some new drivers and monitors. Any question for Mrs. Circala on the transportation report? Moving on to building and maintenance, we have to have permission to accept some sealed bids for selling off a Chevy Cobalt. And that's all we have under buildings and maintenance. Anything for Carmen on that? Carmen, this has to be the smallest agenda item you ever had. I mean, things just must be tip-top in the facilities area. Any questions for Carmen? Okay. Moving on to cafeteria, there's nothing on the agenda for this month.
I have a question on cafeteria.
Go ahead.
I'm hearing from students and parents and teachers that there's a lot of waste at lunch. Kids are getting their lunch and they're throwing a lot in the garbage. Is there any way that we can have a shelf that if the kids aren't going to eat on their tray, they can put it there for someone else to pick up like they hadn't in the past, instead of throwing it all away in the garbage?
Mrs. Phillips isn't here for this one, but I will convey that to her. We'll research that. There are some compliance concerns with that, but I'll make sure that I can speak accurately to that one.
Can they not take the entire lunch if that's being wasted? Like, can they only take, if they want a milk, they have to take the whole lunch?
They do, yeah. They have to take it, how it's handled with health standards and so forth with what isn't used, things were sealed and such. I'll get a more articulate answer on the rules with that.
Any other cafeteria issues? Dr. Gaston has for us items 1 and 2 and subsets. Was there anything we need to add there? We're okay
Yeah, I
with?
believe she wanted.
Okay. So anything under, was there, Dr. Gaston, you want to speak to
Yes,
this?
item 1, there will be a revision. Some of the names for the second years need to be changed.
Okay.
That will be ready for Tuesday.
And we're going to add a couple purchase orders.
Okay.
Yes.
And we
For
have,
Tuesday as well.
we have 3 purchase orders now for Senclear, and we'll be adding a couple more.
Yeah, we're going to work on those tomorrow.
Okay. Is there anything
Personally, curriculum
that you
items.
want to discuss on the items that are being added?
No, they're
Okay.
just curricular items that we realized needed to be purchased today.
Okay. And then you wanted to lead us in a discussion on primary intervention options that Doug and Bob have been heavily interested in with the kindergarten level, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So whenever you're ready, you can get started with that.
Yes, so this was last discussed at a board meeting in June. I was in attendance to prepare to step into the district in this role and got to see the presentation from the kindergarten teachers and Mrs. Richardson on the Fueling Brains program. My understanding at that time was that was being shared as a possibility, as an intervention for some needs that existed in the kindergarten classrooms. Between that time, there wasn't a decision made, and knowing that my predecessor who had helped spearhead that wouldn't be there for that continued consultation, I started looking at options available to us. Fueling Brains had a large price tag, which was part of that discussion. So my thinking is we needed to have all of the information we could with what is possible to pick up that discussion once Dr. K and I got in place to continue moving forward. The kindergarten teachers expressed that there was a need, and I wanted to make sure that we were attending to that as we started the new school year. So during that process, I collected information that you have in your packet on 5 options. Fueling Brains is included as one of those options. I'm not saying that is not part of that discussion. This is just looking at the totality of what we can do to address their concerns. I broke that down by option, what the program or the choice focuses on, the components of that choice. The training and PD that would need to be provided to support that, and the cost. Some of the cost information has changed as we've been working on this, and I can get you specifics on each one as we go. Part of that conversation then extended when the kindergarten teachers were back in the buildings and accessible. So I started having conversations with them to learn more about what exactly they were seeing in the classroom and what needed the attention. So at your desks, a printout of the survey that they completed for me to gain more of that understanding. The first part of that survey looked at determining what the exact and precise needs were of the students in those classrooms. Executive functioning, fine motor skills came in as the most significant needs, followed shortly by instructional and academic readiness. So as a reminder, executive functioning is a student's ability to follow directions, prepare for transitions between activities, make those regulatory decisions for themselves on how to do school. Those are skills that across our region are identified as needs in our incoming kindergartners and primary learners. I then asked them questions to determine what kind of support they were looking for to address the issue. And I think that sometimes we get lost in the sales of a program without thinking about what it actually does, how the teachers interact with that, and how it fits in with the general plan system that we have for the district, not just one little component of a building. So their answers to that indicated they want availability to a short-term rapid response. What that means is if there is a specific issue that they're running out of options and ideas and strategies to work through, they want to be able to get a hold of someone to come in and help with that, to address it quickly so they can move on. They also indicated that they wanted family and community connections and outreach support. So they want some program to help bridge the gap between our parents and our community in terms of what we need for kindergarten readiness, so that our little learners are coming in equipped with some of those skills that they're having challenges with. You know, there are some other options there that were also pretty high. What they said they did not want was virtual coaching. And then there was an other request, and their specific information related to that are in the comment section if you want to read through those. I know that's a lot of information to digest, but I don't want to leave this unsettled as we move into the school year. By all accounts from the teachers and administration, kindergarten is going very well this year. They're not seeing the same influx of those issues, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to pop up or that we're not going to be in the same position next year that they found themselves in last. We have a smaller group of kindergartners this year. The needs seem to be lessened. I'd love to see that continue, but my leading thinking is this is our foundation. This is where we get it right. This is where we build everything that is to come. So if they're expressing that we have a need, I don't want this to go on as something that we talk about and talk about. So I know it was discussed, and there was significant debate during that meeting in June. So I wanted to get some of your thoughts on the options that we have and the general direction.
So in front of us, we have 5 options, right?
Yes.
We have the Fueling Brains, Classroom Aids, League on Social Services, Riverview with, I don't know what the PATTAN is, and then the hybrid approach.
Yes.
Does anybody want to ask about specifics on any of those, or do you want to jump, or should we just go right into recommendations? Is there questions?
I'm a proponent of the Fueling Brains as well as putting aids in the classroom. Yes, those are the 2 single most expensive aspects of this plan. But I think, in speaking, one of the things we always have said for the last 2 years is we want to hear from the teachers. Well, the teachers came in and pitched it with Kelly and the support staff. That was enough for me. That's what they said they think they need. I think that's what they need. They also expressed the need for aids. Sitting in the classroom, in the kindergarten classroom, it's clear to me that aids are needed in that classroom. I mean, that to me is without question. How we get there, I don't know, but in my view, those are the 2 things they need. It's also expressed in one of these opinions written here in the comments. But that's where I stand with that.
I'm all for the classroom aids. That's my number 1 choice, is aids in the classroom, one-on-one with the students, teaching them to tie their shoes, to zip their coats. They need an extra set of hands in their classrooms.
So I think this should be part of a larger, maybe roundtable discussion with the teachers sitting in here, hearing about these 5 options. You just surveyed them. You didn't discuss these other 2-3 options with them.
They are aware of the options.
They're aware of them. And what feedback did you get from them on the other?
They did not give me any feedback.
Okay.
Kate, as the lead teacher, discussed a little bit more of how the proposal for Fueling Brains came about, and we had some discussions in that regard. I sent them 3 emails specifically related to what I'm going to share with you tonight, and I did not hear anything back from them.
Yeah, so I think we should sit down and have a roundtable hour discussion with them and get feedback. So there are 2 other options here, one of which it appears, first of all, is free, or not, maybe not free, but included in our agreement. Yeah. So I think it's worth exploring what services and assistance they can give to us. The other thing, this League on Social Services, can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, League on Social Services is a nonprofit that's based out of Clearfield. They've been around for over 20 years, but for whatever reason, they're not well known in our area. They service 9 counties in the state. Part of what they do is the rapid response team. So that is a team of experts in early childhood that will pay a visit to your school and work with students who are at risk of suspensions, they're at risk of disciplinary issues, anything that would be considered an explosive behavior. They will work with the teacher, the family, and the classroom to develop a plan to support that student.
So they would work with a targeted student that needs their services, not just, like,
They-
I'm reading in this, one of the comments here was that a couple students had an accident.
Yeah,
They may not have
are
been an
not-
at-risk student, but they needed a
Correct.
rapid response to get them to the nurse's office. Could that agency?
No.
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 So the rapid response is to, occasionally, a little kindergartner will exhibit some big emotions, and that looks like a need to clear a classroom for safety reasons. So when you have a child who is having a difficult transition to school, the rapid response is to get people in place so that that doesn't continue to disrupt learning, and to support everything around that student so that we don't move in a direction that hinders the experience for that child, but also all of the students in the room.
So rapid response is not an aid?
No, that is not an aid. That is not an aid. The other part of what they do.
So, I'm sorry for interrupting.
Oh, you're okay.
So in order for a student to, when you say rapid response, this would be
Yes.
a behavioral support therapist that's with them. That's kind of what I'm framing or imagining what you're saying? And
It would function similarly.
And a
Yes.
student in kindergarten may not be eligible for their services yet because they haven't been determined to need those services? Is that part of the issue here?
So a lot of times when we have kindergartners come in who are not part of the preschool systems, so we don't have that incoming information to help us with that transition. We're trying to figure out what is the cause of the behavior, what's the root, why is it happening, and then what is the most effective way of intervening with that student. So you can call in a behavioral specialist. We don't have one on staff, so that is an expense to call somebody in specifically to work with that. The difference between that avenue and this one is that they would come in and work to develop a system of support with our teachers. So they would be able to come in when we have those moments, evaluate, provide support, some guidance on how to do that. The piece that they provide that's missing in some of those other rapid response interventions is that they do that outreach with the parents. They develop a plan to help the family adjust to whatever that child's needs are. And they have a community outreach component, so they can offer workshops and developments for family and or the greater community who have kids that will be attending school in the future.
Okay, and just briefly, can you summarize the services that the Riverview, the IU?
Yes, so the IU, I was in a Zoom meeting with them to get a full understanding of what they do. Their services are similar to the League on Social Services. They can do many of the same components. Their approach is from the educational side. So they're going to look at the systems that we have in place, the breakdown of instruction, how the school system is built. They have more of a comprehensive approach to not just kindergarten, but they can look at that more of through the lens of kindergarten within the primary grades, K-2. Then they can also extend that out to look at how things are working throughout the building. So we can develop an approach to kindergarten, and while we're doing that, consider how that feeds into first grade, how that feeds into second grade, and beyond. Patton is a state system that supports with special education and how we process that. So when those two work together, they can take our systems, like I said, from small classroom and look at the broad picture. So if we have a child who is struggling academically, behaviorally with a physical need that isn't identified until they're in kindergarten, any of those needs, they can help us develop that system of support for not only that moment, but what we do next and what comes after that from a systems.
So their approach is not necessarily hands-on with the students.
Well,
Theirs is more of
theirs-
observing and making recommendations.
They will start with observation and recommendations. They absolutely do hands-on with students
They
and
can
teachers.
send in employees to help.
Yes, and they have a team that would be available to coach our teachers, that they would have support through a text message. If they're having a bad day, they can call or text that coach that they have to have that instant support that they identified as wanting. That does not exist in any of the other options. Classroom aides are absolutely available to do things like take children to the restroom and back, take them to the office and back, help them tie their shoes, those fine motor skills that they just don't have yet. What they can't do is that interaction with the teacher and the guidance on the instructional and supervisory end of things.
Do you have a recommendation out of these options, what you would prefer, or what you think is the most appropriate right now?
I think the most appropriate right now for our approach would be to get the IU to come in and do some observation, not just of the kindergarten classrooms, but the school itself, so that we have some assistance in looking at what's going to be the most effective for not only our kids, but our school system. They also don't have a additional charge attached to that, so that's as easy as sending an email and saying, hey, come in. What I like about that as well is that will help us bolster our MTSS process so that when we have our kids who are moving through those levels of support, we can make sure that all of those pieces are in place. Kate and Natalie do an excellent job, our psychologists do an excellent job, but that is a tall order, and it can get messy when you're trying to make sure that we're not allowing things to fall through the gap. I would start there. I think that we need some community outreach in terms of making sure that our kids are getting what they need when they come to us. I know that our preschools do a fantastic job. I know that our parents who are taking care of their kids at home do a fantastic job. Kindergarten does not look the way it did when we were in school. It doesn't look the way it did when my kids were in school. Any of us who have young kids, it is not the same. The expectations are much higher for that academic. Oh my gosh, I'm thinking of the word. Stamina. Their academic stamina. What is expected of them at 5 and 6 is it's a lot. And so it's more than our kids knowing their colors and their numbers and how to write their name for kindergarten. So I think that trying to connect our community to get them that extra is important. How we go about that, I'm not entirely sure, but
Every other day with a
That's
nap.
been the nut.
right.
Every other day with a nap at noon and a chocolate milk.
Yeah.
That's been the nut to crack, is the community outreach piece.
Right, and
But-
I do think that that's an important element.
Yeah.
So my recommendation would be we start with the IU and we coordinate with Legal and Social Services for a proposal on what they could do for us. That doesn't mean we take it, but that means we explore that a little deeper to see how and if that fits our need. I think that classroom aides are crucial for some of those things. And you'll see in one of the comments, one of the teachers talked about getting a child to the nurse, and there was no one to help with that process, and little people will get lost in that building. I get lost in that building. So I can see the need that is real. We're also in a place where we're still looking for 8 aides. And to add another
8.
7, 8, we're trying to find people that don't exist for the spots that we have. That's a struggle. That's going to be a struggle. The IU can look at that process, look at the building, get to know how it's developed, and help us figure out what we do in the meantime while we're trying to find people. There has to be a way to get that response quicker with what we have. What that looks like, I'm not sure, but that has to be collaboration. And to your point, Doug, the kindergarten teachers indicated that Fueling Brains was going to take care of the executive functions. I'm not disagreeing with that. What I would like to see, though, is the team of experts who can spend some time in those classrooms and give us more of a yes and, or a we worked with this and this is working. That's my feeling on it. My concern with all of that there's nothing that I'm concerned with the program. I've had a very, very difficult time getting information from the people who are trying to sell it to us. They will not give me information that has already been given to folks in the district but is not available for me to access.
That's never a good sign.
That is a concern to me.
Yeah. Have we invited them to come here and give their pitch?
No, we have not invited them to come here. I will tell you that I reached out several times.
Yeah, you
I
did.
explained the situation several times.
Mhm.
It was like pulling teeth to try to get anything other than an invite for an hour-long video chat
Right.
Is there any other districts that have done this?
that have done
Which?
One,
Hazelton.
Just Hazelton only?
which
And this part of
also
this-
says
It's
something.
in our region.
Mm.
So PASA, which is an organization that Dr. Kay and I belong to, at one point had promoted it statewide. They wanted to build a consortium of schools who were using it. It is absolutely evidence-based. The science is the science. It's accurate. There is no debate with that. But it's not being used in our state, so that part of that was working to get more districts to
Is
sign
it
on.
just too new, or is it just
Yeah.
Well, I think
people aren't using it?
They're based out of Florida or Texas. I can't remember which.
Canada,
Oh, really?
yes, their core is in Canada. They have a division in Texas,
Mhm.
and that's who we've been reaching out
Right.
back and forth with. It's too new. It's very expensive. Even with the consortium price, it is $93,000 per classroom.
Wow.
That's a lot. I'm
If
sorry,
you're not getting the-
let me take that back. It's not 93,000 per classroom.
No.
It's 93,000 for our classrooms per year.
Yeah.
Per year. So those things combined, when ESSER funds are no longer existing, that's a heavy bill to support. It's hard also, it requires 90 consecutive minutes of time for kids to work through each stage of the program for the 16 weeks. So where you run into some challenge with that is, how do you get 90 minutes for that in the school day? Something's going to be mumped out. I don't know that that's a terrible thing, to bump some things
Mhm.
out and spend some time focusing on the development of those skills. And this is why it's a challenge to say, we go this way, we go that way.
So first step, you're recommending, not the last step, or that's gonna be concluded, but first step would be to bring the IU in.
Yes.
And it's free.
And
It's
it's-
free. And since-
We've
and
already
s-
paid for it in advance.
Yeah.
So it is free. I think that they can help.
There's no harm in
There's
having
no-
them in.
No. And
Yeah,
it gives
so-
our teachers access to someone that they can reach out to whenever there is an issue, to get advice on how to possibly manage that isn't supervisory. You know, I think that they have a great relationship with their principals, but you don't always want to make that call to the principal's office to say, I'm struggling with this. You want someone that you can confidentially call and say, I can't do this today, this is what's happening, give me some help. I like the clinical end of it, so that we have eyes in the building again, who aren't in a supervisory role, looking at our systems in place that can better guide the rest of that decision that does have significant money attached to it.
What's the time frame for them?
I can call them as early as tomorrow and say, when can you get here?
Yeah, and I do still support the idea of, surveys are great, and I appreciate that we have this information, but I do like the idea of sitting down at a table, whether it's before we have this data from the IU or after.
Yeah.
Just, again, all sitting down and,
I think what you're going to
Hearing
hear,
from them.
I'll tell you what I heard in talking to all the kindergarten teachers, as well as talking to the pre-Ks. The two major issues you have are the fine motor skills, kids showing up with no fine motor skills to the point where they can't hold a pencil. They don't know how to hold a pencil. And the executive
Executive functioning.
executive function, yeah. And even daycares have the same problem, or pre-Ks have the same problem, because a kid will come in that was never in daycare and will land in pre-K at 4 years old, that's never been in that environment, in an environment with a bunch of kids at all. They don't know how to do any of those things. It goes beyond just not knowing their colors and their first letters of the alphabet, things like that. They don't even know how to function in that area. That's one of the biggest problems they have. I mean, they'll tell you that the first 6 months of kindergarten is learning how to be in the building, learning how to be in the classroom, learning how to do those things. So what I haven't heard is anything else that addresses that executive functioning part. Does the IU address that aspect?
I believe that they can if we ask them to
Okay.
look at what we're doing
Okay,
and how we can bolster those skills.
okay,
And if they can't, I have faith that they'll recommend that we need this to address that.
okay.
Sounds like we also need to maybe come up with an outreach plan to these incoming students of what's expected of them.
And that's where,
And maybe one of their parents, like.
yeah, and that's where that other recommendation to approach the legal and social services and ask them to develop a plan for what that could look like. So we have more to work on and customize for what we would need, as well as a quote on what that would cost.
Yeah, we have to develop some type, and we could, hopefully would be the ones that do that, develop the outreach that gets these kids into a pre-K before they land here.
Or even a plan, or even a plan for the parents who are choosing to do that at home. I'm a huge proponent of
Me too, yeah.
pre-K.
Right.
However, we have parents that want to keep their kids at home with them, even making sure that they have access to some information on these are the skills to be working with your child at home. Or if they're going to grandma's, these are some things that the grandma can do with them during the day to help prepare them.
Right.
Just that outreach to make sure whatever choice parents are making, they have what they need to make sure that their child's ready, because we all want that, they all want that.
Since there's no spend associated with this, will there need to be a motion on Tuesday, or can we just, it sounds like we have consensus for step one here to have the IU come in?
I think we should be fine since we already have their services.
Yeah.
Is everybody okay with Dr. Gaston making that call tomorrow?
Yes.
Yeah, will you know by Tuesday then, when they can come, what skill set they bring in terms of the executive functioning and motor skills?
I expect to.
Okay, great.
Good. Maybe a brief update on that on Tuesday, how that communication goes?
Yes,
Great. And then you, under your part of the agenda, there's an informational about the PIAA and Title IX trainings?
Yes, at the last board meeting, we discussed making sure that our coaches had some access to the training to perform their duties with a little bolstered education on the legal end to make sure. So we have Vector Solutions as a PD and training platform that delivers training to our teachers as well as our staff. And we did successfully add the coaches to that. They can access PIAA required training, and they have been assigned Title IX and athletics updated to current requirements. They have 30 days to complete that. A lot of our coaches have already completed the PIAA elsewhere through the PIAA. So DJ had checked on that to make sure that we had that documented. The Title IX, they have 30 days to complete that. It's, I think, 45 minutes. They'll get a certificate, and I'll get it on the back end showing that they've completed that. That will just make sure that we're handling everything with our student athletes legally and ethically.
And then does DJ's office or your office keep those compliance records?
They will come to me through my office, and I will make sure that DJ has a copy of.
So you'll get alerted that people don't get it done within 30 days?
Yes.
Okay. Good. Any questions on any of those items for Dr. Gaston? All right, thank you for the update. And Dr. K has conference and field trips for approval on Tuesday, Drug and Alcohol Commission Assistance Program, IU6 agreement, and then we had a student issue that we're going to need to accept on item number 4 there. And then go ahead if you want. Any questions on those items, or you can jump into your informational stuff. Any questions on items 1 through 4? All right, why don't you get started on the other?
Okay. Policy discussions, the first bullet, diabetic management. This is a follow-up from previous meeting. We had some discussion about the nature of students being able to manage their own diabetic equipment and so forth. We went through the policy, talked about the criteria that needs to be signed off on in order for students to be able to do that. I did have outreach from a particular parent that had some concern with this, and it really it was understood what those criteria were, but the concern was in terms of managing the we kind of called the post management after making sure that those numbers stay where they're supposed to. There wasn't comfort with that. So the direction of our solicitor on this is really the following. Our policy directly reflects the language that's in the statute, and that's not something that we really can change. It's the law as it's written. The criteria, as well as that we are not going to bear the responsibility for how the medication is taken and so forth. But in addition to that, it was also suggested that students with diabetes should have a 504 agreement, and then within that agreement would be the management plan for how those things will be handled and managed. So that's been addressed with that particular family and student at this time, or they're working through that as we go. So the recommendation is leave the policy as it is, and families that where this would apply, we will address those supervision and medication issues through that 504 agreement. Okay.
Thank you for taking care of that.
Sure.
So where does this leave our student athletes?
They can participate, but they can't, we would not prevent them from participating. So again, it would come back to those 4 criteria that, the nurse signs off, the student's physician, and the parents sign off, they can self manage that process, and the student has criteria that they need to follow as well. So when those 4 are met, they can take it with them and administer that. What made this one case a little bit different is the parent wasn't comfortable with not being, was comfortable with those sign-offs, but was not comfortable with not being able to make sure that there was someone to manage the numbers after they self-medicated.
Okay.
And that's where the 504 agreement would handle that, separate from the policy.
Good.
Is that it?
I think. Yeah, it's good enough for now anyway. I just, like, if we have a diabetic kid who the nurse is kind of watching him during the day at school, and then they go to play a sport, who's watching him at that sport? I guess that's my question. Do we provide someone to watch them at that sport, or do they, like I know an instance in Du Bois where the mom just goes because she knows what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Do we?
That's typically part of their health plans.
Okay.
I don't want to say in every single case I know how that's being handled, but in my experience in the past that's been understood by the coaches or the training staff. A lot of times the parents are there. With modern technology, they're able to monitor it with phone technology and other electronics. So there's multiple ways, but it's typically handled with a health plan and a 504, so that it's understood how we're managing that.
Okay, that's good. Thanks.
The second bullet point, investigations. I had a request following our last meeting to review how we're handling investigations, whether that be a student discipline issue or staff, along those kinds of things. I reached out to or accessed some of our PSBA services that we have access to in terms of our policy management. Currently, there isn't a PSBA policy. We don't have one in our manual, and there isn't one that's out there available that specifically addresses that. So there are a number that allude to that. I guess I'm looking for a little direction, so I'll kind of explain the framework we have. We have policy 103 and 104 that are quite elaborate, that talk about Title IX and investigating sexual harassment for students or staff. It's very detailed in the steps and how those things are handled. We have discipline policies for students that are policy 218 and 233 that refer to due process and refer to how suspensions and expulsions happen. So of course, before any of those happen, steps have to be followed. And then we have some other misconduct policies that would really be for 317, which would be a staff one, which really talks about educator misconduct and stuff and how those items would be addressed. So is there any further direction on, if I step back a second, we don't have a policy that's in existence that I could take and modify to our needs. It would, if this is something that the board desires for some specific language, we would have to draft it from, from the start. So if that's the desire, then I would need direction on that. If there, another route might be if there were some administrative guidelines around a specific policy that I mentioned or topic here, then I could.
Are those in the student handbook about investigations? Is there anything in the student handbook? Specific to the student.
I don't know that there's specific surrounding that, but each of these policies, whether it's a Title IX, complaint, or if it's a discipline thing, it's inferred that, how the discipline process will fall out and what the consequences will be is certainly in there.
I don't have anything to add. I didn't have a concern about investigations.
So I was wondering about this stuff. I won't go into the reason why, but so in conducting an investigation, and I'm not asking for a policy, really that you just have guidelines by which you direct people to conduct an investigation. So for example, whatever the situation is, that a disinterested person is the one conducting the investigation, right? And then by what steps do they take to conduct an investigation? Would be something like, I spoke to so-and-so on such and such date. This was the conversation, and a summary of that conversation. Really what it amounts to is documentation. Did I speak to, if there's 2 children, did I speak to both these children involved in the incident? Did I find other witnesses? Did I speak to those witnesses? What did those witnesses say? Did I review the video cameras that showed, what did it show? You know what I mean? And some of the things we've seen in the past. On 1 or 2 occasions, those steps did not take place. In other occasions, we didn't know if they took place. And some occasions they didn't take place until asked. Did you look at the video or things like that? Some of those things should be, in my view, should be standard procedure. You should talk to everybody involved and every witness and have documentation of those conversations. One, it helps you get to the issue, to find out what really happened. But 2, you're also able to say, we've covered all these bases and this is the conclusion we've arrived to. And if you have an outline by which you conduct an investigation, no one can really question that. One example was, we had an incident here almost 2 years ago, 18 months, whatever it was. And the first question I had was, let me see documentation of your investigation. There was none. Did you speak to them and ask them this question? No. Okay, we're done here. Because I can't help you. You know what I mean? I can't back you if you didn't do any of that legwork and ask any of those questions. So, no, you're not getting what you want, and they are. I mean, it's just how it panned out. So it really caused some undermining, frankly, which people can defend themselves from that if they do the proper documentation investigation.
I always assumed, my understanding was you guys had like a rubric you followed of what you had to do to complete an investigation, right? And you're just asking for more of a
Do you?
form.
We have a standard set of procedures based on what the situation might be.
When to involve the SRO, when not to.
Yes.
When to involve the parents, when not to. And so what you're asking for is like a formal publication of what that.
No, I'm asking that they have a guideline about how to conduct the investigation to arrive at the decision to call a parent or to arrive at the decision to call the SRO. You see what I mean? Some of them are cut and dry. Kid's got a weapon, you call the SRO. You know, those things are obviously cut and dry. I'm talking about getting to the roots of an incident that happened, particularly when there's multiple people. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I'm not sure I'm being clear.
I thought, I mean, when we've gone through these incidents, I thought those things have been done. But we may need to just if
one
this
that
is-
I can't
If it's a
discuss.
specific, like, if there's specifics we can't talk about because it's in a public meeting,
Correct.
we can go over an executive session.
Yeah.
Because it will maybe remind us of something or point out easier to Dr. K what your concern is. So maybe we'll put that on an executive session agenda.
Okay, sure.
Good.
All right, and the third one was our volunteers policy. We had some interest in reviewing how we are managing clearances, drug tests, TB tests for volunteers. So let me start with this, and if you want to add into it. So we have volunteers fall into two categories. Some are, let me just make sure I have this correctly, I'm using the right words here.
Position and guest.
Position, yes, position volunteers, which would be largely a good way to coaches, volunteer coaches and those kind of things. The others are guest volunteers, which would be perhaps PTO volunteers or guest speakers or those kinds of things. So right now, the general rule has been if you're a position volunteer, you're being handled as a coach and you're going to produce the same clearances, drug test, TB test. If you are a guest volunteer, there are 2 of the 3 clearances that you will do, and that's all that is necessary for that position. I reached out to get some legal consultation on this. There is one thing that we will need to change after further discussion on this, and that would be regarding the tuberculosis test. So the state code on this is that all volunteers should have a TB test done for whether it's position or guest. The difference that the statute allows for is that if you're a guest volunteer for less than 10 hours with kids, then you're not required. So we would have to have a way to track that, or just ask everybody to do it. So that's what Jennifer Burnell.
10 hours at a time or 10 hours total?
Total.
So a parent who goes on a parent that's involved in PTO and goes on a field trip to the Pittsburgh Zoo for the day and then comes in later in the year and helps with the child's party has to have a TB test.
That's what our legal consultation suggested. Yes.
One of the other things.
I'm sorry, let me take it back. 10 hours per week, not total.
Okay.
Oh, 10
okay.
hours a week. Oh, that's weight.
Okay.
Okay, that's okay.
Okay, that's a whole different ballgame.
ballgame.
Yeah, I
was thinking of the next question, but go.
really messing things up for us here.
10 hours a week, but still, we
I wouldn't go to the next PTO meeting if that's policy. Okay.
Under supervision there, where it says each volunteer shall be under the supervision of a designated school administrator, teacher, or other member of the school staff. I feel like that should say guest volunteers, and I think that we should elaborate in there that they cannot be left alone with any students whatsoever by themselves.
Where are you at, Jess?
Yeah, where are you?
I printed it out.
Oh, that's the
I
policy?
have it here.
Yeah, this is the policy. It would be on, I think, the 4th page. It's like, on my printout, it says supervision and then goes to the next one.
It's in the last 3 paragraphs. Fourth
I don't
paragraph.
have that policy.
It's in
Oh, supervision's on one page and then.
Yeah.
Mine, and then the explanation's on the other. That's why I couldn't find it.
And I guess, like, there was a lot of confusion when people were asking about being a volunteer and why doesn't some volunteers have to have all of these clearances when they're with kids. I mean, a lot of parents came to me, they said that they, would feel better if all these volunteers had all of these clearances. I mean, there is a lot. If you look at every clearance you have to go through just to be a volunteer coach. But, I mean, how do you honestly know if there's not problems? Or how do you know if you're not allowing like somebody that is heavily on drugs in to volunteer with the kids?
What do you want to change again? You,
You want to change the wording of the supervision clause, or, yeah, right? You want to change the sentence under supervision? Each
Yeah.
volunteer shall be under the supervision of a designated school administrator, teacher, or other member of the school staff. You want to specify each guest volunteer?
Yeah,
Okay.
well, doesn't that cover both volunteers, whether it's a guest or a,
The current one seems to.
Yeah.
that's what I would read it as.
yeah, but as a volunteer coach with all the clearances that you go through there, like I'm allowed to be with the kids by myself.
So, as a volunteer coach, you have to get fingerprints?
Oh yeah, here's your
Okay,
list.
do you want PTO parents that come in have to go through the process of getting fingerprints?
If they're under the guest volunteer, I think that the policy should elaborate that they cannot be left alone with the kids if they're not getting all of these clearances.
But it says they work directly under the supervision and direction of a school administrator, teacher, or member of the school
They're
staff.
not being left alone.
And they don't have direct volunteer contact.
But your positional volunteers can be, where it doesn't specify which position. So like people had asked me why I'm allowed to be with the kids by myself, but they're not allowed to be. Do you get what I'm saying?
Isn't the volunteer clear, like what we do for volunteer clearances, is that a state rule or something that you only have to have the two? Because like in my job, I spend less time with the kids than the volunteers do, but I have to have all three because I'm an employee. And the
Yes,
volunteers only have to do two free clearances.
correct, unless they've not lived in the
Right,
state for,
and
then
then
they
you
have to do the
papers.
third.
Right. So I think that's a state rule about which clearances you have to have for that level. I'm not positive.
Well, I guess when I asked, like for volunteer coaches, we were told we had to get every single one of these clearances.
I-
And the only
Sure.
thing that we actually did not have to get was a physical, and I was stupid enough to get a physical. So I guess like, and there was confusion online when people were getting their clearances for PTO, or we had all these new people signing up to volunteer for coach, and when you looked at the policy, they don't go hand in hand. If you get what I'm saying, like if you want to pass that around, like you can see, and this is everything that a volunteer has to have to coach. Like even fingerprinting, you have to get everything.
I thought volunteer coaches weren't supposed to be left alone with students. I thought only paid coaches were to be left alone. I thought that conversation happened somewhere along the way previously.
I think, I don't know. I didn't remember having that conversation, but I thought that a coach was a coach whether they're paid or not.
Yeah, I don't know. But those clearances, essentially you're hitting the qualification that you would need those, whereas a PTO mom coming in to do a party doesn't hit that level of whichever one, they're the guest volunteer,
Not a position.
not a position volunteer.
I should know this answer, I don't. The clearances are child abuse clearances, which flags if there's a child abuse issue. The state police is if there's a criminal background activity. I don't know what that fingerprinting, I would think that if there was something that happened, it would flag up under the state police thing if you've had fingerprints
We
done.
get them hit on the different ones because they're different databases that they search. So we can have something come back on the fingerprint clearance and not hit on the state clearance, or something hit on the state clearance and not hit on the other.
Yeah,
It
like
does happen all the time. And I will say volunteer
FBI
coaches.
is probably too, it's federal, it's all 50
it's-
states where the state
Yeah.
police may just flag.
The other thing with volunteer coaches is a lot of times they go from volunteer to paid coach and back and forth type thing. So, and additionally, there was a time where volunteer coaches got paid for rec work. So that was another reason we treated them more like employees, because they fall into employee category in and out quite quickly.
Just, did you want to get a clarification like, are you wanting to make the policy so there's a clarification of something that's unclear, or do you want it to be a higher level of scrutiny for some category of?
Like, I think clarification,
Okay.
because there was a lot of questions on what's the difference.
Between what again? Between a,
Like, when you look at that one so they explain, like, here in that supervision, like, when I say, like, your coaching positions, like, you can be by yourself, whereas the guest volunteer, you're not allowed to be. So a lot of people were asking, like, what is the difference? Because, like, why was I allowed to be with the kids when the coach wasn't there? But it says in this policy, technically, when people read that, it's saying supervision for all volunteers.
but I think it goes back to which, if you're a position volunteer, which you would be as a volunteer coach, right? That's, coaches are listed specifically under position volunteer. That's just a little bit farther up in the policy. And then if they are not a coach, if they weren't, you know, approved by the board to be a coach, they would probably be a guest volunteer, which that specifies they need to work directly under the supervision of a school administrator, teacher, or other member of the school staff.
I don't know, maybe it's just the way that I look at it and I read it. Like, it doesn't really specify that.
Are you advocating that guest volunteers get fingerprints too?
No, I'm talking
Okay.
about, like, with the supervision here. I mean, people did ask me, like, why kids are in the school working with their kids, and, because there was a big conversation, and I don't know if anybody else seen that. It was on social media, and people had reached out to me asking me questions, and, like, for me, it was completely different when I'm looking at myself as a volunteer, and I have to get, like, the Act 26, the Act 24, like, the FBI clearances. I mean, I had to take all these certifications, like Jenna was saying, which this isn't current anymore. So we'll have to change it. But there was a lot of people that were asking, you know, why certain people had to and other people didn't.
My understanding, and it may have changed, I know at the library, when we have volunteers at the public library, if you're under 18, you don't get clearances, because it won't show anything. That's what we were told.
Yeah, and
At
it
the
is in
library.
here that if you're under the 18 or you're a student, you don't have to have them.
Right, so the students that are working from the high school up there, unless they're 18, wouldn't need to have clearances. So that, and on the, where it says under that position, field trip chaperones, I don't think that means like day trip chaperones. When the band goes to Florida and if we were going on a band trip where chaperones were staying over, then we had to have the 3 clearances. You had to get your fingerprints, your child line, and your state police. But if you were just riding the bus to the football game or whatever, you only had to have 2.
I had to get all 3 for mine, for my kid to go to a stock challenge presentation last
Was
year.
it an overnight or was
No.
it a daytime?
No,
Okay,
daytime.
I don't know, that's what we were told
Why
back
don't we
then.
could we maybe compile like an FAQ, like if you're this type of volunteer, this is what you need. If it's not, this is what you need, and maybe bring it to us before we publicly put it out there. And then if we need to change the policy, we can do that, because there's some confusion here.
'Cause I think if we start requiring PTO moms who are coming in for a party or going on the Pittsburgh trip to
That's-
get
yeah, I don't
fingerprints,
want moms
that's
to-
And there's
expensive.
also cost money. The other
Yeah.
2 are free.
Right,
So maybe we can take this policy, break it down into a little bit more, specific questions that we're getting on a mom handing out cupcakes versus a volunteer coach versus somebody getting on a bus, and then either work with PSBA or the solicitor to get those definitions,
I can do that.
and then we can see if we need to change the policy. Is everybody okay with that? Yep.
Throw a sticky wicket in here, just.
Go,
saying,
yeah, please.
I hate to make this conversation go longer, but sometimes when you are volunteers and on field trips, you're not with somebody else. So that will need to be a consideration as well. Because if they're at the Zoom, they're not necessarily with
No, yeah,
a teacher.
you make a
or
good point.
aide or whatever.
Yep.
So that should be something to discuss.
All right, so we'll put that on the agenda for next month as well. Okay, good.
The last thing that I just wanted to share, earlier, perhaps 2 board meetings ago, we enrolled in the full all access to the PSBA options that we have in there. There's a number of functions that we have. I just wanted to share those with you. If any of those strike your interest and you want to do more, and that kind of thing, then I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of what it was. And part of our goals that we talked about involved doing a policy review and making sure that we're current in things. One of the things that we get is something called the Policy News Network newsletter. So there's about 4 legal briefs that we get digitally that outline a number of policies that should be revised, and they give us options to bring to the board and say these are policies need to be brought in so that they're consistent with how law has changed or other circumstances have changed in the world of education. So it gives us the option to tailor it to the way you would like it to be, but at least alerts us to the fact that laws have changed and we need to be current with those. There's 20 to 30 of those a year that will come out. And we also have access to last year and the year before that as well. We're able to request 10 policy guides per year, so if we don't have a policy on something and we would like to, they have about, I think they said 530 of them that exist that are in it, in the current categories that we have, the 0s through the 900s, that we can use as a reference to build from. There, in some cases, and we referenced this earlier, there are times when there isn't one that exists. It doesn't mean we still can't write one, but we can work from there. They also have policy administration regulations that could also be useful in the case we just talked about earlier, that I can go in there, access that, and say, is there something that we can build from that would tailor to what our needs are. So I'm going to use that service. We also have the option for them to process our board policies. So if we have, for example, something that we want to write from scratch or one that we wanted to have built, they can make sure that it meets the legal standards. And they have a team of attorneys to make sure that it is appropriate and consistent.
And that comes with our, if we had Bob or our other solicitor, that would cost us.
Yes.
This is our.
We already paid for this.
Okay.
This is, I don't recall, free.
$265 an hour.
Yeah. The last thing that they offer, and this is a charge that's in addition to that, I'm just sharing this, I don't know that I'm recommending it, but they have an option for a complete review of all of our policies, not just the ones that have been brought up in the recent, last year or 2 years, but everything to make sure that they're current. We have some that are quite outdated. Perhaps they still fit, but they could have a 2002 date on them last time that they were looked at. They will look at all of those. There's a charge of $7,200. It takes a 12 to 18 month review to complete that, and they would invoice us over 3 fiscal years. So I don't know that I'm necessarily recommending it, but I just wondered if that was something that was a concern. There isn't a way to go about that, but I think for us being new and the options that we have here, this will keep us busy for a while.
So it was the recommendation of the last administration, and I think you both want to think that there should be a holistic policy review of all our policies to make sure they're up to date, right? And if we do that in-house, it's going to take an extended period of time, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Versus paying PSBA to do it a little bit quicker for $7,200.
They would do it over the course of a year and a half.
So I don't see, and we're dealing with precedent policy issues as they come up, because we're either getting a PSBA alert, the solicitor is involved, or we have an issue that we need to address, right? Correct. So is everybody okay allowing these folks in central office to slowly get through these policies rather than farming it out? Okay.
I thought they did that for free, but
I did too.
So they give us their library of policies, but they won't review ours for free, apparently.
well, you get 10 of them a year. You don't get their full library, right?
Well, you shouldn't need, unless we're adding, that's a lot of policies to add in a year.
No, we
We will review 20 of ours a year. We can ask for 10 additional to be written per year.
They'll review 20 of them a year for us for free? Or
As part of the.
Okay, so you're going to take
so how many
advantage
do
of
we
that, right?
have?
I probably wouldn't guess, with several hundred.
Mike has a whole separate server just for our policies.
I didn't realize there was that many.
But we have access to every we can get every policy they have, correct?
Here.
No, that's for new policy.
The new policies we get, any new one
Okay.
Yeah.
we get.
They have a guide
But if we wanted one on,
that kind of looks like this of every policy that's been written
Okay,
in each of the categories. We don't have all of them. We probably don't need all of them.
Right.
But those are the ones that we can get access to if we needed to.
So-
on 10 of those a year.
so when you previous administrations, bring these to us, like, say that something needed update on the volunteer one. That doesn't count in our 10 or 20? Okay, that's because it came from them that we need to do this.
We already have it. We're just, right now, we're in the discussion phase of that, and, we don't, it's not a new one. It would just be a review of what we
It's
have.
something they push out periodically, right? That would be, that's what
Yes.
you're referring to. Right.
Right, but like, in previous board meetings, we get, this policy needs updated, and it's got red line and stuff.
Yes.
Does that count in our 10? Or is
No.
that comes from them? It's if we ask for something new.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
Like-
I'm clear now.
Doug asks about a policy on investigation.
Right,
That would be one of our 10.
okay.
Right, yeah.
All
A
right,
better
I know
example
that.
might be, recent years, and everyone went through this, there was new legislation on threat assessment teams. There were probably 6 policies that needed to be updated to reflect that new legislation. And so, they provided the proper policy in place in there in the language. And then under that language, they would give you a number of check boxes that you can decide, as a board, these are the ones that we want to have. The choices that you can pick of those choices that would still be compliant.
It'd be good to know. I think we wrote 6 new policies last year that we did not take advantage of.
Oh, we started with a template. I'm almost sure we started with PSBA template on
Oh,
this.
did we?
I would have to go back and look, but my guess is we probably,
I don't remember paying for any extra.
no. I
Good.
think it was. And browsing through it, Chad, we may have 100, 150, maybe 120. I didn't count them, but just going through 0 through 900. Yeah, so take advantage of the 20 they offer, knock down what you can, and then we'll deal with them as they come up.
Yeah, we'd be foolish not to do that. I mean, even if we have, say we have 100 policies over the next 5 years, we're constantly reviewing
Yep.
20.
All right.
That's all that I have.
Okay, thank you. Back to my agenda tab. All right, next we have principal reports. Ms. Richardson, you representing the elementary school tonight?
Yep.
Okay. So,
I just have a couple of celebrations
Great.
to talk about. First one was our Meet the Teacher nights. I think the board had requested last year that they be prior to the beginning of school, so we tried to oblige. We had 3 nights. We serviced 587 families, so pretty successful. Got lots of good feedback from that. Hopefully we can continue that next year. Kinder Camp was in August as well. We had 85 kids attend out of 115. So we got almost everybody, and I think that also helped the smooth transition for the start of our school year. Parent Boot Camp, that was the first day of Kinder Camp. We had 60 families attend that. So again, we hit almost half of that population. So again, having those parents on board, knowing the expectations, I think that was positive. Things to look towards, Bo talked about the Kinder Senior event. I think Matt Curry was putting that on social media. I think some of you were there, so that was a positive. Beth Saxman has been putting on our elementary page under activities, new teachers. We have a ton, and she's formatted it as like the lineup, the starters. If you haven't had a chance to look at that, you should. And then this is from Jeff Kuntz. It's an invitation to be part of our Leader in Me on the trail. It's on Tuesday. So just lots of good things.
So we can be excused from the board meeting to go to that Tuesday?
Oh, yeah. Guess not.
All right.
We can go from 5:30 to 6. No, we're having executive.
Yeah, we're
You
doing
can't
executive
at all.
Yeah, we'll be there in spirit. Any questions for Mrs. Richardson?
I do know that this got a lot of positive feedback
It was
last year.
really good last year. We're only gonna have one story walk this year, but that's so good. Last year we did too.
Any elementary school questions? No, thank you. Okay, under high school, it looks like number one is going to be, we're going to do some discarding of some music, some equipment from the music department, and then some purchase orders. Any questions on one or two of their subsets for Dr. Smelko? If not, I'll ask her to start her informational
Well, I
items.
had one question.
Yep.
Why is the guidance, like, is that a normal amount for their postage? That seems like a lot of money.
It's for the whole year.
The whole year.
It's their open PO for the whole year.
What's your PO down here?
I don't know offhand, I'm sorry.
Our postage costs are phenomenally high for a district. I mean,
It just
I'm
seemed
assuming
like
all
a lot
school
of money.
districts. Yeah, I would love to get into the digital age with everybody else that we can confirm delivery to parents things, but I think we're still stuck in the mail days.
Well, I would be in support of sending report cards home on the last day of school instead of mailing them to save some money, if that's possible.
How many report cards are you going to think are going to make it home?
What's that?
You think?
No, sending the report cards home with students on the last day of
I was
school.
going to say, how many do you think are going to get there?
Well,
There's some years my kids would not have given me his report.
I just know, you know, the postage that was spent on that last year was probably a lot of money.
Yeah.
And maybe it's unavoidable, but.
Some of that would be state testing data, when we get their Keystone scores, their PSSA scores, things like that.
Okay,
Um,
that makes,
report
yeah.
cards. We did send progress reports home previously with the kids, but that's all digital now. But that would be some of the additional things at the high school that we would send home via the mail.
The state testing stuff, yeah, you usually get 2 or 3 of those.
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Kind of echoing Bill and Mrs. Richardson, last Friday was pretty special. As a parent, a senior parent, I was not crying at all. Which
Not
is to
at
say
all.
that there was wind.
The
There was a lot of wind on the football field.
Yeah, sure was.
But it was, I have to say, Mr. Coons did a phenomenal job. He really did a lot of the organizing for that event and coordinated, and it, like Mrs. Richardson said, it is on the Facebook page, the district page. It's really good. So we're very fortunate to be able to do that. Kind of along that same line of thought, we are looking to take our senior athletes and band members back up to the elementary school for homecoming. Like we have the past couple years, we greet the kids as they're coming in the building that day. So working with our elementary school administration to get that set up as well. Overall, beginning of the year, I think has gone well. We are settling into a very different schedule for the kids and the teachers. The days are going by very, very quickly with 40-minute periods when they've been used to 70 or 75-minute periods prior to. I feel like we kind of blink and we're halfway through the day already. So I think that has been good. In that process though, with a brand new schedule, we are seeing there are some things that we want to look to adapt and change and correct as we move into next year. And mostly that is looking at where we have courses offered this year and how we can maybe make some of those changes that we need to ensure we're not having conflicts for students and maximizing what they can take during their school day. But I think that is just kind of part of the growing pains of switching to something new and working out some of those bugs. Our Meet the Teacher night went very well. We did the whole building, 7 through 12. We were busy that night. We had a lot of families, a lot of kids coming in. Again, for our high school students, it was to get their schedule to see what classes they were going to have. I think that also helped, again, transitioning into a new schedule this year. They could see the class periods, what times they were being offered, and start to kind of process a little bit more. They heard that we were moving to a new schedule, but to actually see what the bell schedule looked like on paper and what that looks like for their classes, I think helped a lot too. Military and First Responders Night is tomorrow. It is our football game tomorrow night. The boys will be wearing their alternate gray jerseys, which are the military jerseys that we have. Mr. Gordon has been working closely with local fire companies, VFW, and local organizations so that we're ready for that. And we're excited. I think it's going to be a great event. Usually one of our busiest. That and homecoming are our two busiest games. So we're looking forward to the football game tomorrow night.
Tailgates is still at 5:30?
Yes.
Okay.
Pulled pork sandwiches, courtesy of the First and 10 Club.
And you are not jumping out of a plane, Mr. Gordon.
We
have
tried.
a plane, we need to get a jumper. That's Bob Lott's dream is to do that someday, have a parachuter, but not this year.
Do you want to ask
Check
about
our
the
insurance policy on
There's no clause for
Wants to
that.
hear that.
I look over that every year, and I know that there's not a clause for that. There were some concerns we had about scheduling. Can you talk, sometimes with the AP students and AP classes, sometimes those students they're not just taking one AP class, but multiple AP classes.
Yes.
Was there conflicts there, and are there resolutions?
We did have some conflicts. We tried to separate out the AP classes and some of the more advanced classes that the seniors would be taking as much as possible. Right now, we have a conflict between AP Calc and AP Lit that has caused a few scheduling conflicts. And that's, like I was saying, one of those things where initially in the schedule, when we placed the classes where we did, that was an unanticipated conflict that we thought would be happening. So we've been able to, I don't want to say use a workaround, but we've been able to make sure that we're offering students that want both of those classes an option, and something that we want to look towards next year to be able to make sure that we don't have those conflicts anymore. My goal is in October, similar to how we did last year, whenever I explained that I went to the department meetings and we started talking. We want to take the big board. If you've been in my office, you know the big board, the scheduling board. Taking that and taking the master schedule and working with the departments and saying, okay, what would you like to see moved? What offerings do we need to put where? And try to start doing that as early as possible so that we can be prepared for scheduling and avoid those conflicts in the future.
Do we have any senior students or junior students this year, especially senior students, that aren't able to do their 2 AP credits if they want, or their 2 AP classes if they want them?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
We had a conflict and we were able to work within the academy to make sure that we were still offering the AP classes that we needed to.
Okay.
Again, my goal would be to be able to have that happening in the building,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
we
I
were
don't
able
like
to
that.
accommodate.
I do not like that. I don't think a student should miss out on a class period. And if they have to take that class, the only option is for them to take it online. So that's something I think we need to.
How many
Get
students are
figured out.
taking online classes for this?
We have a number of students taking what we call a singleton. It's a single class on eAcademy.
Because of the scheduling problem?
Sometimes because of scheduling, sometimes because of a missed credit somewhere that they needed to recover that class from whenever they were an underclassman, but some of them are taking them because of some of the conflicts that we did encounter.
I do have to say that it's nice that that option is available, because previously that wasn't an option. I'm talking a good few years ago, but kids were kind of left with, well, you can do work study or you can't, or you can play sports or you can't because you can't get enough classes. So it's nice that there is flexibility for those that might need something
Yes.
to do that.
We looked at every option we could to try and avoid having a student have to take a class online. In some situations, that was our only option that we were left with. We had some creative scheduling solutions. I have to say, the guidance department, would look at what was available and we would try to come up with the best option that we could to make sure that, because we didn't want the students to miss out on an opportunity if they wanted to take a particular class.
The problem that I heard, and that I heard this from the students, that AP Lit and AP Calculus was scheduled the very same period. So they had to choose. So in the past, they were never scheduled the very same period.
We had AP Calc is a 2-period. It's a block of 2 periods back to back. And that's where the conflict comes in. It's third and fourth period, and AP Lit is fourth period. So there was a scheduling conflict there. The other part of the AP classes, especially with the seniors that we were also trying to be mindful of, is trying to fit the classes in the schedule where they would work so that students could also still do work release if they wanted to be part of the employment program.
Can you maybe, not like just catching a cold on this, but can you maybe get us some numbers so we understand the scale of the conflicts? Like the number of kids that are having to take singleton classes because of scheduling conflicts.
Yeah.
And yeah, it seems like that that AP thing, I would think our brightest, college-bound kids, that should have kind of been known that we were going to have both those kids. A lot of the kids that want to take one AP want to take the other. That overlap. And I understand they may not, then they may not have been able to do the work study in the afternoon, and something's got to give somewhere. But I don't know if this is 3 kids or 13 or 30.
I can tell you the AP concern was a very, very small number of students. I would look for sure, but thinking back to the kiddos that I enrolled into an AP E-Academy course, those numbers were very small.
All right. Yeah, if
But I will
you
definitely
get some numbers for us, please.
Yep.
Chad made me think to ask a question. The keyboards from the music department and the piano, are they not functional at all? Or are they something we could sell?
Mrs. Nepper had said that they were past their prime. I can check though and see if that's something that we could possibly resell. She had just asked for discard for those.
Okay.
For those
Because, I mean, if they're
particular items.
functional, there might be some people that would be interested. Okay, thanks.
Anything else for Dr. Smelka?
Not for me.
I just have a couple points. I don't know what I'm talking about here exactly, but it's just some of the feedback I've got. I think there were more kids that had to choose between AP classes than just Calc and Lit.
Okay.
I think there were 2 or 3 other instances. I don't like the fact that kids are being forced into E-Academy. I get sometimes confused where some people have so much time in their day that they, but other kids have not enough time. I'm also, I have some questions about dual enrollment. So I think this is dual enrollment is a wonderful opportunity for students, especially those students who are going to IUP.
Yes.
If you are not going to IUP, it is maybe not as much of a wonderful opportunity. If you are going to another state school like Clarion or whatever, those other state schools will accept those credits. You have to pay to transfer them. Where I have concerns about is I think we're encouraging, pardon?
No, my daughter did that. My kid took 24 credits at IUP, and they all transferred to Slippery Rock.
You didn't have to pay a transfer fee?
No.
Okay.
There are some schools where they have to check to make sure that the credits will transfer.
Right.
But for the most part, I know we have some students that have gone to outside of the state schools
Right.
system that they've transferred to for them as well.
They all have.
I know of a student that, yes, it transferred. It was not IUP, Clarion, Edinburgh, Cal U. It was an outside.
So that's where I think, there's some students that go to Pitt or Penn State and they do the dual enrollment and their credits aren't recognized by those schools. So, and I worry about some of these academic kids that are encouraged to do this dual enrollment, but don't end up going to IUP or a state school. They go to Penn State and Penn State doesn't recognize them. But then they've missed out on AP classes that they needed or could have benefited from.
Does
So
the guidance department have any information on, or inform the students or the students' families that which schools would definitely will accept and which may not, anything like that?
When we do scheduling with the junior class, I guess with the sophomore and junior class, because they can start taking them junior and senior year. The liaison that we work with through IUP does come into, she came in last year for the scheduling meetings with the kids and kind of presented what dual enrollment was to them. And then once the students decide if they want to enroll in those dual enrollment classes, they start looking at if they know where they want to go and things like that. But I can find out more specifically those conversations that, you know, the counselors would be having with the kids to make sure that.
yeah, I'm not knocking it. I think it is a wonderful opportunity, but I just think there's.
You just want them to know ahead of time that
Right.
it's not going to be universally accepted.
Yeah, I think in some schools it's not, like depending on what classes that are offered
Right.
at IUP or whatever, you may not get that, you know, depending on the gen ed requirements that Penn State or somebody else might have, they may not all transfer. But like I said, for my daughter, it worked out well, but. like I said,
Sometimes they get
it's
kicked
not
into being an
guaranteed.
elective. Like it wouldn't count as Penn State's English class, but they'll count it as an elective credit towards your credits. So it really depends on the university and their.
Right.
And I know that is a conversation with the students when they're choosing to go into dual enrollment. Do you know, what is your plan post-graduation, and if checking in to see if if those classes are going to transfer, but.
Thank you. With regards to the classes and what's available and not available and conflicts and stuff, I'm trying to understand this because I do have a student that will be doing this soon, and I'm trying to understand it. And I just hear feedback from some of these people. Like the other thing was courses that are required 1 year and then not required the next year. So they've taken those courses 1 year, and then the next year it turns out they don't need them. I don't know how often that happens, but it was another feedback I got.
That would be, I don't know specifically, were there any classes that were mentioned that you know of that?
I don't know off the top of my head. Again, I'm talking about stuff that I have no idea what
Okay.
I'm talking about. I'm just giving some feedback, and I don't like talking about stuff that I don't know.
Yeah, there were, when we did some changes to the curriculum guide, that would have maybe changed. For instance, last year, the juniors took half a year of Brit Lit, half a year of communications, where we switched back to a more traditional English in 9, 10, 11, and 12.
I do believe Brit Lit was the one that was mentioned.
Yes, so that would still count as half of their English elective. This year, instead of having 2 separate English classes, they just have English 1, 2, 3, or 4. But it still counts though towards their English credits, regardless if that is still a requirement or not. It still counts towards their credits they need in each department, each category.
And what I've told most of these people is, I don't know a lot of this. I do know that it sounds like it was a huge undertaking to switch from the previous schedule to the new schedule, and so there are going to be some growing pains or
yes.
screw ups or whatever you want to call it that hopefully we can get ironed out, and in the future it's better.
I think, like I said, the transition has gone well. It's a transition for the teachers and the kids. Our teachers were used to teaching double in 1 day for 2 days because they didn't see the kids every day, so now they see them every day. So their lesson planning and lesson pacing is the same but different. I don't quite know how to explain that, but I've gotten a lot of positive feedback that they really are happy seeing the kids every single day. Same thing with the kids. I think there might be some more homework than what they were used to because, again, it's a 40-minute period, so they're getting that content, so there might be a little bit more that they're doing outside of the classroom. And I've got positive feedback, too, that we do not run on the cycles anymore. When they come in, it's Monday, it's Tuesday, it's Wednesday, and it doesn't change. They have the same class no matter what day of the week it is, which I think has also been very beneficial. My biggest concern moving forward is just making sure when Mr. Gordon and I were placing those classes last year and into the summer, we were trying to be as mindful as possible and looking at those conflicts that we could foresee. There were unfortunate conflicts that came up that we just didn't realize would become a conflict at the time. And that's the part now, you know, fine tuning and kind of adjusting some of those things so that we're not, I don't want to say forcing a student into an academy class, but that's their only option. They have as many possibilities to take what they need.
Do you work with the guidance counselors early on, like before you have the schedule made up? Do you work with them early on with you?
Yeah, we tried to work with everybody, the counselors, all of the teachers as much as possible. They will come with a recommendation and say, hey, have you considered moving this class here or this class there? And we can do that sometimes. Sometimes it's a little bit harder because then that has a domino effect on all of the other classes that students would need depending on the grade level. And like I said, for this upcoming year, now that we have a framework in place and we have this original master, if you will, asking the counselors, asking the teachers, okay, what do we need to move? And then trying to play that out as early as possible so we can avoid those conflicts.
Any other questions for Dr. Smolka? No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have, and I wanted to recognize too, we have Mr. Badtorf here this evening. So even though we all approved you and voted for you, some of us haven't seen you in person, including myself. So if you stick around at the end, we'll say hello. So thanks for coming. All right. Next we have financial reports. We have financial summaries, occupational tax request, exoneration request, purchase order, and then the annual agreement with IUP. Any questions for Susan under the financial portion of the agenda? Next, we'll move on to personnel. We have additions and deletions to the sublist, resignation, some hires, and then an appointment of a robotics club advisor. And then do we have any additions to personnel?
We'll be adding a leave request without pay.
And we're going to be adding a leave request for Tuesday's meeting as well. Any questions for Dr. K on any of the personnel items? None? All right, then we'll have the special committee reports. Doug stepped out of the room. I can wait for him to come back, or would you like to say anything about Jeff Tech?
We had a meeting, I think the 25th of August. Doug was there, I was there. We met in the food refrigeration building that was just open. We talked about the program. We talked about staffing of the program, the budget. We also had a presentation from an individual that works for a clean energy, it works actually for Allegheny County, but it's all about preparing students to convert gas to alternative fuels. And the JOC seemed favorable on looking into that further as a training program for Jeff Tech. And we discussed a solar farm that Jeff Tech is attempting to get a grant for that would basically offset the power requirements of Jeff Tech.
Good. Those all sound like positive things. Any questions for Bob on Jeff Tech report? No? Okay, thanks, Bob. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Dee Dee, anything from IU6 you'd like to report?
The only thing is we elected our board officers for the year. Everything stayed the same. Our president is Tom Phillips, vice president Terry Armagost, and the treasurer is Kevin O'Neill. That just all stayed the same. Mainly everything else was just regular business, and our next meeting will be September 24th.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for Dee Dee on the IU6? We didn't have any communications that I'm aware of that we need to discuss. We have payment of the bills to approve on Tuesday. Any questions for Susan on any of those bills? None. New business. Who has any new business items? Dr. K, you had, did you have something?
I did, but I'll go last.
Okay. Anybody else for new business items?
No.
Okay.
Then I'll go first. just to conclude, I have 2 recognitions for service on the school board. So I will start with a recognition for Mrs. Evans, who is joining us online for 10 years of service. So perhaps on Tuesday, Tuesday we can get a picture and all of that. And then our president, Mr. Konjerski, for 5 years of service. So
Thank you.
and that.
This isn't
nice.
this isn't Earl Watson.
That one,
I
I didn't send a
appreciate it.
watch. But
5 years, I think it's aluminum, isn't it?
Is it? Yeah. Timex. All right. So, thank you for that. Appreciate it. Anything else for new business? All right. We will adjourn and see everyone on Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you.